So what is maple sap? How does it form, and how does it go from this clear water-like substance into this beautiful sticky creation that we know is maple syrup? Maple sap starts as water pulled up from the ground by the tree's roots. That water carries tiny amounts of minerals with it. Once it's inside the tree, a few key things happen. The tree stores energy. During the winter season, spring to summer, maple trees make sugar through photosynthesis. Instead of using it all right away, they store that sugar as starch in their roots and wood. And the winter turns the starch into sugar. As winter sets in, that stored starch gets converted into sugar, mostly sucrose. This sugar dissolves into the water inside the tree. That sugary water, that's sap. In order for the tree to make sap, you have to have cold nights that are below freezing to create negative pressure that pulls water up from the roots. Then you have to have warm days above freezing to create positive pressure inside the tree. That pressure is what makes sap flow when the tree is tapped. You're not bleeding the tree, you're basically opening a valve. You may be wondering why we only make maple syrup during the spring. Well, once buds start forming, the tree uses the sugar for growth, and the sap chemistry changes. It gets buddy and grows for syrup. That's why syrup season is short and precious. On average, it takes approximately 40 to 45 gallons of sap to produce 1 gallon of maple syrup. This ratio varies based on the sugar content of the sap. Another factor is the type of maple tree that we're using. Sugar maples often require less, around 30 to 35 gallons, while red, black, or silver maples may require 40 plus gallons due to lower sugar concentration. Another often overlooked factor is the efficiency of the boiling process. This means whatever you're using to fire it with, as well as the equipment that you're using. So now that we've talked about sap and how sap forms, let's talk a little bit more about how syrup is actually made. We start off by drilling a hole in the tree. We go through the bark and into the sapwood, but we don't drill it anywhere near the heartwood. Once we have our hole drilled, then we hammer in a spile. Once the spile is in the tree, then we go ahead and hang a bucket, and then we cover it up with a lid. When the weather is right, when it's cold at night and warm during the day, the sap will run. Then comes the hard part. You gotta go out and gather all that sap into 5-gallon buckets. Once we have it in the buckets, then we take it over and we dump it into the gathering tank.
Well, we filled up the first tank of the season, getting ready to pump it off. Open up our valve. Plug in the pipe, pump, and off we go.
That goes through the pipe. It goes up overhead. Pump straight into the tank.
Once we have enough sap in the holding tub, then we go ahead and fill the pans. Once the pans are full, we go ahead and start a fire in the arch and just let it boil. One of the most common questions that I get is how long does it take to boil the raw sap into maple syrup? The simple answer is it all depends on the sugar content. Maple syrup needs to hit 219 degrees before it's finally done boiling. That's about 7 to 7.5 degrees above the boiling temperature of water. We check the density of the maple syrup using a hydrometer. Once we determine that the sap is finally turned into maple syrup, we dump it into our jugging station. From there, we go ahead and jug it up. The sweetness and color of the maple syrup comes naturally. We never add any kind of flavor or any kind of color to it. This is just pure New York maple syrup made right here in Black Creek.